Whose fault is it that the Yzerplan did not work out with the Detroit Red Wings? If you missed it, we spoke about this yesterday on the show, but the Detroit Red Wings are going another direction with their leadership. Steve Yzerman is no longer the general manager of the team, and instead he has been promoted, not fired. He's not fired, he's still with the team, but he is now a senior advisor to the CEO and governor. He ain't the GM anymore. And there will be a search to figure out who does the general managing, the signings, the trades, the everything in betweens of the Detroit Red Wings. I'd say this is a pretty amicable, it's not even a parting of the ways, it's just an amicable transition within the Red Wings organization. Stevie Y was never going to get fired. That's the thing. He's Steve Yzerman. He's the guy. He was the captain for so long, and he captained this team to multiple Stanley Cups while posting 100-point seasons out the behind. There's no way the Red Wings could fire Stevie Y. But promote him to a position beyond general managing, which obviously we have come to conclude he wasn't the best at with Detroit, that's fine. But the question remains, the Yzerplan didn't work with the Red Wings. Whose fault is that? Was it Stevie Y's, or is there somebody else to blame? To get some help, let's go out there and read some tweets posted by JFresh on social media that just kind of dives into the ins and outs of what may or may not be the cause of this failed Yzerplan. Firstly, we've got Steve Yzerman's picks in the first 2 rounds after 6th overall between 2019 and 2024. Take a look. Out of all these picks from this draft selection, how many of these guys made the NHL? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4? Axel Sandin-Pellikka, Nate Danielson, Marco Kasper, and Albert Johansson? None of these other guys drafted in the first 2 rounds after 6th overall made the team. And I'd say that with this amount, you literally have, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18 guys drafted in the first 2 rounds of 5 straight drafts, essentially. And you hit on 4 of them. That's not a great percentage. How many of these guys were first rounders? Well, the first rounders did hit. I mean, you do have Marco Kasper, Danielson, and Sandin-Pellikka all actually being NHL caliber dudes. Brandsick Newgard, he made the team last year, but then he got sent down. There's a verdict on him that is yet to be fully fulfilled. But between that time, I mean, Theodor Niederbach didn't really pan out to much. Sebastian Kosa got traded. Shai Buyam ain't really doing all too hot. William Wallinder has spent 3 years in the AHL. Same thing with Tuomisto and Mastro Simoni. None of these guys really ended up becoming what they should have become based off of their draft spot. And now it bleeds into more discussion as to whether or not Steve Yzerman is the guy who is responsible for this team getting to this spot and not progressing further. One of the replies says, let's exclude the 2 really good draft picks that Yzerman made. Yeah, everyone knows Seider and Raymond were great picks by the Detroit Red Wings. The response then says, criticize his pro scouting instead. It's not cherry-picking to point out that a rebuilding GM couldn't find any impact players outside the top 6 of the draft while drafting for a team that didn't make the playoffs once the whole time he was there. Oh, so you're agreeing that he got shafted by lottery luck. JFresh went out there and spoke about this on Twitter. It is beyond time for Red Wings fans to get over the draft lotteries. The team almost definitely drafted better than they would have if they had actually gotten lottery luck. Whining about lotteries is taking away the one thing Yzerman actually did right. If you think about it, had the Red Wings actually gotten the lottery luck that we thought they should have gotten in years like 2019 and 2020, they might have ended up with worse players. They maybe would have taken Kirby Dach, or they maybe would have taken Lafreniere first overall in 2020 had they gotten that draft pick. The fact that they dipped actually gave them a blessing in disguise because the guys they did take ended up becoming great. The problem is when you look at the rest of the draft picks that Yzerman made outside the top 6 in the first round, and you see that a very small percentage of them actually became impact players at the National Hockey League level. And then you have this post. Retired and Cute said, Ken Holland is more responsible for killing the Yzerplan than Steve Yzerman is. But casual Detroit sports fans aren't ready for that take just yet. Jay Fresh then responded to this, saying, hey, here's the last Yzerplan post, I promise. Ken Holland obviously left Yzerman with a burning wreckage, but everyone knew that. It was priced in. Yzerman was finishing 3rd in league-wide fan front office polls before any of his draft picks had even played. I don't think any GM has ever had more buy-in, fan support, and faith than Yzerman got in the past 7 years, in part because of how bad Ken Holland was at the end and how little he was left with. On one hand, yes, it would have been nice for Stevie Y if Holland had drafted remotely well between 2015 and 2018. On the other hand, Wings fans understood how bad the situation was and were willing to grant Yzerman almost endless patience that only ran out when Yzerman tried and failed to push in and actually compete with the crummy roster he had assembled. Not a lot of GMs could have tanked in 2019, 2020, and 2021, and then kept tanking in 2022 and 2023. Yzerman didn't have the stomach for it. If he had, though, fans would have still trusted the Yzerplan because he was basically starting a franchise back from scratch. He should have. Instead, what happened in those years? Well, Stevie Y went out there and made some really interesting acquisitions and signings. Actually, mid-tier NHL players coming over to what was a quote-unquote rebuilding franchise, actually taking this team and trying to pull it into the playoffs. Now, I'm not going to fault Stevie Y for taking the risk, but what you can fault him for is potentially taking that risk when the team was not ready, when the team wasn't good enough. Not actually building the team out properly. We talk about the amateur scouting. Okay, these are the guys that Yzerman drafted. You talk about the pro scouting. Oh, man. Justin Hall, Ben Sherratt, JT Compher. I mean, all of these guys coming over. Yeah, it's true. They're fine guys. But were the Red Wings the right team for them to go out there and use them to the best of their abilities? Or was Steve Yzerman relying on an Andrew Kopp or a JT Compher to come in and actually push the team into the postseason? Unfortunately, I don't think it's really realistic to think that those kinds of guys are the players that you can realistically push your team over the edge with. Jake replies, I mean, doesn't the fact that he hypothetically needed to tank for 5 years to make it work paint the picture of how brutal of a job he took on in the first place? Yeah, but again, everyone knew that. It's hard because I don't know how much blame he can have for his team blowing a prime playoff position in March, but I always felt he was a bit overrated from the jump. Jay Fresh then says every single one of those Wings teams was fraudulent and didn't deserve to be in a playoff spot in the first place. And that may be true, but at the same time, hey, what were the ramifications done to help actually build the team into a positive spot long-term for that? Signing and drafting high ceiling, low floor guys, not taking many risks, refusing to get Quinn Hughes, refusing to get Jason Robertson. Those are the decisions that Steve Yzerman made, and it seems like they're the decisions now that have set this team back a few years. So with that said, you can let me know your thoughts in the comments. Who really is at fault for the Yzerplan, and is this analysis true in your mind? Red Wings fans need to get over draft lotteries. Steve Yzerman held the team back. Do you agree with this? Do you disagree? Do you think he could have changed the way this team performed if he had just made some different decisions? Let me know in the comments all your opinions. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.